Hi, thanks for having me here today with you and for letting me introduce HELLBLADE SENUA'S Sacrifice. My name is Viola Nicolucci and I'm both a psychologist and a psychotherapist. A few months ago I had the chance to speak for the Piedmont Association of Psychologists, and I held a webinar about psychology and video games. We discussed several topics. You can see some of them here, and at the end of the webinar we also introduced a few video games. HELLBLADE SENUA'S Sacrifice was one of them. HELLBLADE is an adventure game. It's set in Scotland in 800 AD during the Vikings invasion, and the main character is Senua. Senua is a Celtic warrior who's affected with psychosis, showing hallucination, both visual hallucinations and hearing hallucination. But the game is not in itself a simulator of psychosis, instead it's a story of a person. These are the main topics I recently introduced for a conference about the video game. For preparing this talk today as well, I got in touch with somebody in the company. The company was founded in Cambridge in 2008, and I had the chance to get in touch with the art director, Tamim Antonatis. We discussed some of the points I'm going to introduce to you today. Here you have some further details. Okay. The goal of the company with this video game was that of tackling creativity process, so how to represent the perception of reality as a constructive and active process, and how the mind works. And they realized that a video game could be an interesting media to show these points and introduce them. They normally start projects tackling a lot of research, and they did that. They did this both with respect to the history framework and to the neuroscience. And this is what they did with the neuroscience. They got in touch with the University of Cambridge, where they found Professor Paul FLETCHER, who's a psychiatrist and is also a professor of health in neuroscience. They got in touch with him because he's specialized in psychosis. Luckily enough, FLETCHER was in touch with Wellcome Trust, which is one of the main charities trust specialized in mental health and in trying to demolishing stigma around them. So what happened is that Wellcome Trust awarded Ninja Theory a couple of grants, and with those grants the company was able to pay for the consultants, to engage the service user, and also to make more implementation of the technology. Okay. I'm not gonna introduce, well, this video basically introduces what I've already told you about the consultants and the research part of it. So
I can't see. Who's there?
To make a game about a warrior with psychotic mental illness as its central theme was fraught with danger. It was clear that we needed help if we were to stand a chance of tackling this subject.
For me, it was really exciting to see something that I explore scientifically being represented so beautifully in a character who's trying to penetrate the mysteries of the environment in which they've been placed, with all of this strange uncertainty and noise and conflicting information that they're getting. I'm very excited by this way of trying to represent mental illness, because I think it actually might be offering us insights that we wouldn't get from pure scientific explorations, and actually giving us quite an empathic view of what it might be like.
What started out as a brief consultation convinced me that we were only scratching the surface of an immensely deep and interesting subject that could enrich and change the very nature of the game.
The students that are involved in this project are incredibly excited about being involved. They have described the experience as being important because It values their lived experience and shows that despite what we have been through, all of that experience becomes valid. It's something that we should all be talking about.
Maybe you're already dead. Who are you?
The people we spoke to, the stories they told were fascinating, harrowing and mind-boggling. The reality of what people experienced was vivid, far exceeding what I could possibly have imagined.
It was just fantastic to get the opportunity to use our lived experience in a very creative way. There's nothing tokenistic about the work we've put in. It feels like we've been listened to, things have been taken on board, and I think there was a lot of realism in the game itself, and it feels very authentic.
I really hope that others will follow the lead they've set and use the power of something like a video game to change people's perceptions, to increase understanding, and ultimately to make some of the stigma around voice hearing and other experiences go away.
So the stage was set for a new adventure, a fantasy that was created by SENUA'S own mind, and one that we would experience through her eyes.
These are all the stages we've gone through. I'm not going to speak of all these bits in this event. Okay, what's interesting is this side of the video game. I would say that there's a psychological side which is not only involved with the mental health devised and designed within the game. So I would consider, as a psychologist and a psychotherapist, the video game being kind of an amusement park for psychologists and psychotherapy, because it's packed with symbols and metaphors. And although I'm aware that they're a common tool in the video game industry, they're also a common tool in psychology and psychotherapy. And for this reason, I think this video game could be used in clinical treatment as well. Also, I would say that the symptoms and their representation are useful within the video game, because they give a chance for the gamer to be involved in SENUA'S own experience of her mental illness. So the gamer will feel anxious, he will feel disoriented, confused and scared. Okay. Something else we also discussed in our chat with Tamim Antoniades is the definition of fun and engagement, as soon as I'll get there. Okay, here we are. So I asked the company about the involvement of fun, and what I've been told is that Ninja Theory prefer the game to be defined more as engaged. So I presented a model about fun, because I consider from a psychological point of view it to be fun. If you analyze all these sources of possible fun. Nicole Lazzaro is a psychologist, but she's also a game designer, so she's got a background not only in psychology but also in coding and cinema, and she researched fun and developed a model about that, which is called the 4 Keys to Fun. And in my opinion, what happens for HELLBLADE is that the kind of fun that is involved in the game is what for Nicole Lazzaro is named as serious fun. So basically, gamers are engaged because of the meaning involved throughout the game, and yeah, the purpose actually. Okay. About meaning, to keep on the discussion, what's interesting is that Nikki was the co-founder of the Quantic Foundry, with a background also in social science, computer science and game behavior, developed the gamer motivational profile. So basically he submitted a questionnaire online to gamers, and he found out about 6 motivational profile with 6 different motivational drives. You can see them in the background, and what again I discussed with Ninja Theory is that probably the motivational drives involved in the video game could be, in this situation, immersion and creativity. But here what is interesting is that what Nikki did is searching and researching for the personality correlates at the basis of this core motivational profile, and he found out some of them. So what's interesting, again, for what concerns HELLBLADE, is that immersion and creativity are linked to openness to experience as a personality trait, meaning that possibly the gamers have this personality trait with all these features, and it could be interesting also to analyze whether the team members have something in common with this psychological and personality profile. Okay. At the end, we shortly discussed what is the potential of the game, and we devised these 3 different areas. The game could have a potential in terms of awareness, treatment, and empowerment. For instance, awareness, it could be promoted during Comic-Cons, treatment both in private and public sector, and empowerment because the psychology and the mental health that is involved in the video game is not only psychosis, but is also anxiety, is also depression, trauma, and midlife crisis. So I'd like to leave you with this final video, which presents the feedback from the gamers. Some of them are affected by mental illness, some of them are not. And here what's interesting is that who's unluckily a patient used the video game as a tool to explain his experience of mental illness to friends and families.
Still not sure, but what I do know is to Please don't go, I want you to stay. I'm begging you, please. Please don't leave here. I don't want you to hate for all the hurt that you feel. The world is just illusion, trying to change you. Please don't go, I want you to stay. I'm begging you, please. Oh, please don't leave here. I don't want you to change for all the hurt that you feel. This world is just illusion, always trying to change you. Please don't go, I want you to stay. I'm begging you, please. Please don't leave here. I don't want you to hate for all the hurt that you feel. The world is just illusion, trying to change you. Please don't go, I want you to stay. I'm begging you, please. Oh, please don't leave here. I don't want you to change for all the hurt that you feel. This world is just illusion, always trying to change you.
Thank you.